Arsenal at home as they take all 3 points, 2-1, the final score over Tottenham. Let's take a look at what it means for the Premier League table. Of course, Liverpool first on 47 points. Arsenal now 4 points back, though Liverpool do have a game in hand. For more on this, let's welcome into the show our good friends and colleague, Jurgen Klinsmann. We got Julien Laurens as well, but Craig, I'll start with you. What's a big takeaway from Arsenal's comeback?
Well, Liverpool dropped some points yesterday. They just had to get the win. They effectively kept Spurs in the game by their poor finishing again and the fact they were trying to overplay in the final third in the box. They should have killed this Tottenham team off. Tottenham, for their part, shot themselves in the foot for the 400th time this year, this season. Just before half-time. And then he takes off Bissouma and Sarr, who have fast become liabilities for this manager, this club. Bissouma with his performances and his discipline, Sarr with his discipline or his indiscipline. Got a booking for, I think, kicking the ball away, and he's always prone to a rash challenge. And so, as soon as he got booked for that, I said to you guys, he'll put his foot in somewhere. And so that kind of forced the manager into taking them two off, and then we're sitting saying, who the hell's playing midfield? So young Bergvall was playing in there with Kulusevski and Maddison in front, and it became even more open. But I got to give...
Why weren't Spurs more dangerous in that?
I got to give a lot of credit to young Bergvall, right, again. I think at the moment he's... Kulusevski's been great, but I don't think he can do any more. Yeah, he was lucky not to get sent off in the Liverpool game. But in terms of his performances as a youngster in the middle of the park, I think he can do no more. The fact is here, until Spurs get all their big players back, they really can't compete over 90-odd minutes in terms of a football game with teams like Arsenal. And the fact Arsenal didn't kill them off today was more to do with them than anything else. So it could have swung back Spurs' way at the end of the game. You saw the little clip there from Pedro Porro. But if we're being honest about it, Arsenal should have had this game already in the bag before we got to that point.
Jurgen, what's your biggest disappointment here from a Spurs perspective? Obviously, they grabbed the lead early on and can't take anything from the match.
Well, the biggest disappointment from a Spurs side is, as Craig said, it was more Arsenal not finishing it off earlier and scoring the third goal than it was actually Spurs finally maybe scoring another goal or getting back into the game. You never had the feeling that Spurs really could put that Arsenal side in real danger. And, it was curious to see the first 20 minutes were completely controlled by Arsenal, and then Spurs suddenly out of nothing had 2-3 little chances through corner kicks, came actually Sonny's goal, and that put the whole game basically upside down. And then Arsenal corrected it, scored their two goals. Obviously, another set piece, the famous corner kicks that everybody kind of knows now what's coming, but it's coming, and they score. And then they should have finished Spurs off in the second half. They had enough chances to do so, and even risked, as Craig said, in the last second of the game, Pedro Porro could have surprised Arsenal with that shot from the outside there and hit the post. But it would not have been a deserved tie for Tottenham because it's just simply not enough. We hope now from Spurs' perspective that the players are coming back from injury. Maddison is back. Richarlison came in. But it's just not enough right now. It's not enough to put an Arsenal side in danger that, I would say, clearly outplayed the Spurs today.
To your point, Craig, they bring on Maddison and Johnson at halftime, supposed to be attacking. We showed the highlight. The better chances in the second half were Arsenal. They were closer to a third than Spurs were to a second. That's got to be a major disappointment for a team that prides itself, Shaka, on its attacking ability.
But that's not a good balance. They brought on... That's desperate.
Right, but what I'm saying is we didn't even see the fruit of that. We didn't even see chances, really.
I thought Spurs had some chances very late on, but it's a one-goal deficit. Arsenal defending, you understand that Spurs kind of pressed a little bit and have a couple of opportunities. But to Craig's point, Arsenal are a better team, with or without Maddison and Johnson. And you saw that from beginning to end. The scoreline doesn't reflect Arsenal's superiority in this one, and maybe that's a reflection on some of Arsenal's needs that we've been talking about for the last few weeks. But truth is, while Spurs gave the best of themselves that they could, I didn't think that they were a match. Now, at the same time, if you want to be hypercritical of Arsenal, the first goal comes from a set piece that shouldn't have been a corner. The second comes from Bissouma giving the ball away in midfield really, really cheaply, when I thought Dragusin and Gray were doing a really good job in terms of dropping off and giving that option as an out ball. So I think Bissouma has to take a lot of blame for that. Those things aside, Arsenal certainly dominated possession, dominated chances, with the better of the two teams. So, in truth, the points went where the football dictated. Spurs have their issues, injury and otherwise, and even without those injuries, I'm not sure that you can make the argument that they would ever get anything out of this.
Just briefly before we go to Jules, it takes them off because Bissouma's having one, basically, and Sar's probably not going to see the game out. I've seen him make rash challenges before. He's on a stupid yellow for kicking the ball away. And he's a guy who dives into challenges. So now you have two attacking midfielders, and that's what Kulusevski, or wide player stroke midfielders in Maddison. You've got two super attacking players being glued together by a teenager. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, well, it's going to be even more open. And one of the issues for Arsenal is that they're keeping other teams in the game. But they gave Newcastle an opportunity. Their form side. Isak's got a hat-trick again today. They took it. They gave Man United an opportunity. They took it.
Are we not turning up our nose a little bit at a come-from-behind win against an arch rival?
No. But what I'm saying is, if we're looking at how they're going to hunt down Liverpool, if you're giving teams opportunities by not killing them off, and they've paid the price for that already in more than one or two games, it's one of the reasons they went out the FA Cup. It's one of the reasons they're 2-0 down against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup semi-final, and it was one of the reasons that they were a mistake or, a bit of magic away from dropping points in this game. That's me being hypercritical, but that's kind of where they are. Their possession and their possession of the ball around the opposition penalty boxes should be resulting in better chances and better finishing, thus putting games to bed.
To that point, I have absolutely no problems with the attacking changes that Postecoglou makes. One, because Arsenal don't pose much of a threat through the middle. We've spoken about that. Again, not to bring up Kai Havertz, but we've spoken about that. And you're 2-1 down. Have a go. I have no issue with that. And trust Bergwijn through the middle. I'm with Craig. I love everything I've seen of his progression over the last few weeks. Trust him through the middle. And have a go. And I thought Spurs tried to do that, but Arsenal were just equal to it.
Yeah. Jules, let's talk a little Arsenal here. Obviously, the guys are saying it wasn't that pretty, but how big were these 3 points in the title chase, especially given the fact that Liverpool have dropped points?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important victories of the season, really, considering where they were at in the table. And Craig said Liverpool dropping points yesterday on the back of those two disappointing results. The performances against Newcastle and United were not that bad. They missed a lot of chances, but they created the chances. They had quite a lot of control of the game, but they still lost one and drew the other one, and then lost it on the penalty shootout. So they had to react. They had to bounce back. It was still far from their best level, really. There's still a lot of wrong decision taken by those players, especially in the final third. There's still a lot of missed passes. Clearly, very low on confidence for Havertz and Sterling, which you can understand for both of them for different reasons, but you can understand that. But my word, this is a very, very important win. Not just in table-wise or because it's the derby and you beat Spurs again. It's more like the confidence was low and the morale was low coming into the game, and this is going to give them a massive boost before hosting Villa at the weekend and then the Champions League coming back next week.
Bearing in mind, Jules, that we have the Jesus injury now, which is the rest of the season for sure, and the other issues we've talked about at length, is there going to be any movement from Arsenal? I know it's difficult, but are they going to try and do something in that forward line over the couple of weeks left in the transfer window?
Yeah, they have to really, just in terms of numbers, purely in terms of numbers, they are too short now, and I think had Gabriel Jesus was not injured, I think they probably would have stayed like that and do Zubimendi now for the summer. Zubimendi is going to go through, we expect, for the summer, for next season. But now they're looking at maybe a loan with an obligation to buy, or with just an option to buy for a striker in the summer, in January. Sorry. The problem is, if you go and see Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko and say, hey guys, we love Sesko, he wants to come, but we just don't have much money. Is it okay to loan him to us? And Leipzig is like, well, no, thank you, unless you guarantee that you spend 60 million in the summer in one installment to make his loan permanent, which I don't know if they can right now. So it's going to be very tricky to get probably the right players, or the player that they ideally would like for this number 9 role and position, because they just can't go and spend 60 or 70 million on somebody straight away in January.
Jurgen, after what we saw from Arsenal today, you more or less convinced that they could catch Liverpool?
Well, it's still a long way to go. Obviously, we're at halftime line, kind of. I think there's still a possibility to catch up with Liverpool, but it depends more on Liverpool, what they allow the others, than maybe an Arsenal or the other teams that kind of trying to catch them. I think for Spurs now, it's getting really tricky, because obviously you drop points in the Premier League, you drop down. It's not looking very positively, and you rely purely on the cup competitions to make it some sort of a successful season. And with obviously every point you drop in the Premier League, you are more with your back against the wall in every cup game you're facing now, and it's not easy days there at White Hart Lane.
The best thing that happened, and I don't know how often this has happened, or if it's regular, I can't remember, but 4 weeks in between, basically 4 weeks in between a Carabao Cup first leg semi-final and the second leg, is, bearing in mind they are 1-0 up against, is 1-0 against Liverpool.
1-0 Liverpool, yeah.
The best thing for them is that, Jurgen mentioned it, cup competitions, if they go to Anfield with this current group of players, you kind of think Liverpool are not going to let that happen twice, and they're going to roll all over the top of them. There's a chance that some of these bigger hitters, I don't know how many, will be back for that Anfield game, and that levels the playing field somewhat. And I think that is at least something for Ange Postecoglou to hang on to, but he really needs to get the Van de Vens, the Romeros, Adogi, Bentancur, who's been a big loss for him, with the suspension for the racism, then the injury that he got in that game in the first 10-15 minutes, which was really nasty. So you need experienced players like that. So if he gets them back sooner rather than later, he's got a chance of salvaging some from this season. If he doesn't, and they'll just continue to rely on kids, I kind of fear where it's going to end up for the Tottenham manager.
Jurgen, if you were in Ange Postecoglou's shoes, what would you do? Would you prioritize the Carabao Cup, go for that trophy? I mean, right now they're 13th in the Premier League. Europe seems like a far-off dream.
It's for Ange, it's very difficult. Obviously, you need to get your points in the Premier League. That's your daily bread. So you need to get back on winning games and climb up the table of the league. At the same time, you hope, as Craig said, you hope that your long-term injured players are coming back. Your leaders of the pack are coming back, because right now, when you watch that game today, there was nobody kind of taking things in his hands. One leader, a verbal leader that kind of pulls everybody together and says, "Let's go for it now. Let's try to equalize this game." They tried to, but there was no real conviction. They were not really kind of thinking of being capable to do it. So you need to get those experienced players back, and they need to show leadership. They need to show that they are who they are, and then obviously you can make it one step at a time. You go from game to game. Obviously that second leg at Liverpool will be psychologically will be very, very important, that game. Let's hope from a Spurs perspective, if you can make that surprise, you survive that game, you move on basically there, then it could turn things around in a very, very positive way. If you get out of that competition, then it might have an effect even on the other competitions you're still in. So it's tough times for Spurs fans. There's no doubt about it.
You buying the optimism there, Craig?
What's that?
The optimism from Jurgen?
Glass is half full. Jurgen's glass is half full.
And mine?
I'm
your
not
glass
sure you
dropped
have
and
I'm not
shattered
sure you
on the
have a
floor.
glass.
Oh, well, fair enough.
Jules, as far as Arsenal are concerned, you feel like they've got enough to challenge? Did today's result in any way convince you that they're ready to make a real run here at Liverpool?
I think until Saka comes back, they will have to grind out a result. They will never be the same. But we knew that before. We've explained it. We're not going to go again over the Saka injury, but this is maybe the worst, even maybe worse than Odegaard, I think. The worst thing that could have happened to them. So it will never be great. It will be good at times. And again, we said it against Newcastle, against United, away at Brentford, even the first half against Brighton, they had some good moments where they play good football. There are other times where they don't play well. And yeah, they score a lot of goals on set pieces, which they all count, but they will have to grind out results. Some games will be easier than others. There will be, as we said, the Champions League coming back with back-to-back games. So now you're going to play the weekend, midweek in Champions League, weekend, midweek in Champions League again. Then the second leg of that League Cup semi-final, away at Newcastle, where you've got that 2-goal deficit, trying to come back into that. So there's massive games coming. There's the City game coming very soon too. So all of that is big. But as long as you can show that resilience that we saw today, the character, and I think Greg mentioned, or you, Sebi, it's 4 games in the last 5 now where they have to go from in behind. So Brentford, they go a goal down. Newcastle, they go a goal down. United, you go a goal down. Tonight, you go a goal down again. And yes, sometimes you can come back, but most of the time, you won't come back. Home or away, you won't come back. So this has to stop, and that strong defense that they used to have needs to come back if they want to stay in touch with Liverpool to start with. And then when Saka comes back, if they're still 4-5 points behind, then they will have a proper go at it. And let's see what happens in January, who they sign, and if that number 9 that they will sign, I think, or try to sign, can make a difference. But yeah, for now, I think it's all about showing that resilience and grinding out results.
They've got a platform to go and grind results, haven't they, if they need be? I mean, they've got a pretty solid back four, big and physical. Lewis Skelly, young Miles Lewis Skelly, has obviously looked great when he's come into the side. Calafiore's been a strong signing for them when available and fit. Timber, after last season's injury woes. They've got physicality in midfield and options in midfield with Moreno coming in or Partey playing or Jorginho, Declan Rice and then Odegaard. And Trossard always has some magic moments and they're going to have to just manage this scenario. But I think they can. I think they can, and as long as they keep pressure on Liverpool and don't make it easy for Liverpool, that has them looking over the shoulder. And believe me, you do when you're Liverpool. You're looking at the gap and you're looking at the games coming up and you think, just can't quite shake this team off. And that's what Man City have done to teams in recent years. They've just been there, when they haven't been top of the league, they've been nipping away, picking up points, putting runs together, putting pressure on teams like Arsenal and eventually wearing them down. Let's see if Arsenal and their current guys can wear this Liverpool team down. Because they're not infallible, Liverpool. They're a good side. They're a good side, but they've got their own issues. They've got some contract issues with Van Dijk, with Alexander-Arnold, and with Mo Salah. You may have noticed. And these little things, they sometimes can wear away, in performance and people not happy behind the scenes if they're not getting what they want. And what Arsenal need to make sure they're doing is if there is any rumblings at Liverpool, or if there is any fall-off, that they are there to take advantage. And I don't see any reason, even with Havertz missing chances, even with Saka out, I don't see any reason why Arsenal can't keep themselves on the coattails of Liverpool and at least keep them honest.
Just to bring it back to the game real quick, there is kind of a significant moment of controversy. We showed it to you in the highlights on Arsenal's goal from the corner kick. It shouldn't have been a corner kick.
Well, you can't go back.
You can't go back. But Jurgen, if you're a Spurs fan or if you're somebody attached to the club, do you have a right here to feel aggrieved looking back at that replay?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, if you look at the replay, it was not a corner kick, but it's something you cannot fix anymore. But it makes you even more angry, because obviously for Spurs fans, it's the worst that can happen during a season is losing against Arsenal, no matter how. And if it's then through a controversial situation like that, then yeah, I mean it's not nice, and you have to swallow it. But maybe it shows a little bit where Spurs is right now. even those little moments don't turn their way.
And to have the goal going on a corner kick, I mean, it was almost as if it was scripted.
Yeah, an own goal like that, in all honesty. So for Spurs, there's a lot to be aggrieved about, but listen, it's not the first time we've seen that happen. That happens quite regularly in the course of a game. In the course of football, it happens. But you've got to be able to switch on. You've got to be able to just put that behind you and deal with it. And I thought Spurs and Kinski had dealt with Arsenal's set pieces really well up to that point. And then all of a sudden, this one comes in, Kinski gets pinned in, Dragusin kind of gets dragged around himself, and for the first time and the telling time in the game, Spurs are all at sea and just don't cope with the set piece well enough.